Okay, welcome everyone to the Huddersfield Planning Subcommittee meeting. In terms of the agenda, we haven't got the normal chair of the committee here, so we will need to appoint a chair. So do we have any nominations, please?
Nomination for Councillor Mohan Sokal.
Good afternoon, everyone. I've been appointed here in the absence of Councillor Terry Lyon, who is away on holidays. He enjoys sunshine somewhere. Yeah. So, can I ask all public members and the members here switch off your mobile phone, please? Yeah. So, before I start item number 2, membership of committee, I will welcome some new members who haven't been before. Councillor Richard Eastwood, yeah. Councillor Nell Griffith, yeah. Councillor Harpreet Uppal, thank you. And Councillor Nigel Patrick, well, he is not here. I believe you are in his place. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah. So, membership of the committee. Any substitute? Yeah.
My apologies, Mr. Chairman. Councillor Bill Armour substituting for Councillor Nigel Patrick.
Thank you. Any more? I haven't heard anything from Councillor Sarwa. He might be coming late or he didn't send any apology. So if he comes late, he can take his seat. Thank you. Minute of the previous meeting. To approve the minutes of the meeting of the committee held on 17th of May 2012. Someone move it? Thank you. Ken Sims? Second? Yeah, Bellamy. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Page 87 and page 123. I'm a member of Owen Valley Parish Council, but don't take part in any of their planning decisions, so nothing. And page 131, I've been lobbied by the applicant and brought the application to the committee, but gave no other advice. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kenton.
Neil, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Griffith.
None.
Councillor Sheikh.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's in relation to item number 13 and 14, pages 39 and 59, modifications to the definitive map at Clayton Fields. I won't be taking part in any of the discussion or the voting and try and remain as I have done in previous matters when they've come to this committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor.
No.
Yeah.
Nothing, Chair.
Thank you.
No.
Thank you. Oh, yeah. I haven't got. Sorry, I will say something later on. Yeah. Yeah.
They're all public items. Thank you, Chair. My name's Teresa Harlow, a Development Control Team Leader, Development Management Team Leader. There are 5 appeal decisions at this Planning Committee to report. 4 of those were dismissed and 1 was allowed. One which was dismissed was at Fenny Lodge on Thorpe Lane that was determined at Planning Committee. That was for a house in the curtilage or site of a listed building. That was also dismissed by the Inspectorate. Thank you, Chair. Through you, Chair, can I just read a statement regarding the local plan before we start consideration of planning applications? Thank you. The Council have received an interim letter from the Planning Inspector regarding the local plan. The letter is not the final report from the Inspector, which is due later this year, but it does mean that, subject to modifications, the local plan is capable of being found legally compliant and sound. The letter contains proposed modifications affecting a number of site allocations in the local plan, and together with other modifications discussed at the examination hearings, these will be available for public comment this summer. The letter is capable of being a material planning consideration, where relevant, alongside the publication draft local plan, but generally the current advice for members remains unchanged at this time, unless the letter references a specific site. The letter does not reference any sites forming part of the agenda today. The letter, together with the Council's response, will be placed on the Council's website. Once the modifications have been prepared and are being consulted on, they will also be capable of being material planning considerations, and further advice will be made available to members of the committee at that time. Thank you, Chair.
Can I go back on item number 12 because I did not ask member any comments on those appeals? No? Thank you. Before I start, go on item number 13. I got a request. I got a request for item number 17 from Councillor Judith Hughes to bring forward the item number 17 because she and some colleagues, they want going somewhere on urgent work. Yeah, so we agree. I want to bring this item after item number 13 and 14, collated field. Yes. Yeah. Before I start item number 13, I would like to read a statement from me. I have been advised that I should make clear that I am aware of the Council's Code of Conduct for members and that I have a sound judgment on what constitute bias and apparent bias or predetermination, and what constitutes an interest. I'm going back on interest. I'm also aware and understand the general principle for member conduct, namely selflessness, honesty, integrity, objectivity, accountability, openness, and leadership. I'm a board member for the Greenhead Ward. Statement is that's why, because the item number 13 and 14 is in Greenhead Ward. I'm a ward member for the Greenhead Ward, and I have been involved in the Clayton Field issue for many, many years. While I consider myself to be fully able to participate in the meeting and to vote, I will remain as chair but will not participate and vote on the item number 13 and 14. This is in the interest of transparency and to uphold the general principle of members' conduct. Thank you. Members agree with me? Thank you. Yeah. We go on item number 13. Officer Judge.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. My name is Giles Cheetham, an officer working on public rights of way matters. The first item is the consideration of 6 definitive map modification order applications claiming the existence of public footpaths at Clayton Fields, Edgerton. The officer recommendation is shown at Appendix Z. This has been amended, clarified and digitised further to issues raised both at the previous committee meeting and at the member briefing. This item was deferred, as the next item as well. They were deferred at the May subcommittee for a member briefing to take place, which took place last week. Since that briefing, the Council has received a response from DEFRA on Mr McGee's request for direction from the Secretary of State, which is reported in the member update which was issued yesterday. I'd just like to confirm that a decision on this item will satisfy that direction to determine Mr McGee's 2 applications. Thank you, Chair.
We've got Jonathan Adamson, who will be speaking on his behalf, and also he will be speaking on behalf of Bill McGee. I think you've got a statement to read on his behalf, haven't you? That's fine. Please come forward.
Okay. Mr. Jonathan, you got 3 minutes to speak for yourself and 3 minutes for your colleague Bill McGee.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm Jonathan Adamson. I'm the chair of Clayton Fields Action Group. Chair and committee. As I stated to this committee on May the 17th, none of the claimed public rights-of-way routes submitted by Kirklees officers in May were submitted by the applicants, with the exception of the application route to widen public right-of-way 345. Some minor alterations have been made to the routes submitted by officers since May, but the routes remain substantially the same. On the 22nd of November 2017, the Planning Inspectorate directed the Council to determine claimed public right-of-way 183 not later than 3 months from the decision date. The Inspector states in her decision, the Council has effectively decided that the applicant's claimed route is a path or way. The 183 route the Inspector is referring to is shown on the plan prepared on the 23rd of May 2017 for the proposed stopping up of footpaths at Clayton Fields. This plan is still in place at Clayton Fields. This is not the 183 route the committee determined as a public right-of-way on the 22nd of February 2018. Although I suspect the committee was unaware of this at the time, as was the applicant. Officers are again recommending the committee determine routes as public rights-of-way which have been substantially altered since the stopping up site plan was prepared by the rights-of-way unit on the 23rd of May 2017, which showed the applicant's routes. In these circumstances, clarification is required from the Inspectorate about the legality of not adhering to the direction issued by the Inspector on the 22nd of November 2017. Anything less will require a judicial review. Thank you.
Now, you got 3 minutes to speak on behalf of your colleague, Bill McGee. Thank you.
Okay, Bill McGee was the former chair of Clayton Fields Action Group and is very ill, couldn't attend today. He's only been given months to live. He has prostate cancer. These are some extracts from the address that he hoped to have given last month when we met in May. Essentially, I've just taken a couple of things. The first thing that is in here, which he wanted to raise and which he's felt very strongly about, was the way that the councillors were requested to stand down in relation to this issue. So I'll simply read the paragraphs. Regarding the 3 councillors that have been asked to stand down by Kirklees' legal department, I believe that they have no right to do so, as the councillors' interest is purely to protect and serve the community which they represent. Otherwise, what is the point of having councillors? I also think that the Chair should give further consideration to the Japanese knotweed in Clayton Fields, which is now heavily infested with this invasive plant due to the inappropriate work carried out by the developers. I have to point out that it is an offence to knowingly allow this species to spread and must be controlled and disposed of by licensed persons. I have taken the liberty of placing before the Chair and the Planning Committee and councillors this statement and the law relating to Japanese knotweed. Now, this might not have got to you in some kind of way because the meeting stopped before Bill was able to give his address. But it's available to the Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it, Chair.
Now, members. Councillor Ken Sims.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move option 2 of the officer's recommended report. I'd also like to thank the officer for his work, as it's been a very, very difficult. It doesn't come on now. It's been a very difficult application to consider over the many years that it's taken on as a site. It has been difficult. I think what we've got before us now is a fair and qualified option for this now to go forward. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, Councillor James Homewood.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I'd second that. I think my understanding, after having much more clarity now that we've discussed it in more detail, is that I think really what we're doing here is, rather than looking at specific lines somebody drew on a map at some point that, you know, it's quite difficult to do, we need to look at the evidence that's available on site about what routes are there and what routes are used. And I agree, I think what the council have done here is actually done quite an extensive amount of work to determine that and look at all the evidence that exists and actually provide us with a very clear direction about where the public rights of way are. And so I agree, and I'm happy to second that option. Thank you.
Any more members? No. So, officer recommendation have been moved by Councillor Consent and seconded by Councillor James Homewood. All in favour?
Seven, Chair.
We go to items 14.
That's the 257. That's section 257 order. Giles will introduce.
Yes. Now we go to item 14. Planning Act, section 257. Giles.
Thank you, Chair. This next item is the application, which is a joint application from the landowner and the prospective developer of the site, the prospective developer being interested in implementing the planning consent which has been granted by this council. And they made an application to extinguish the... Originally, they made an application to extinguish the claimed rights of way across the site, which is what was brought to committee in October, and authority was given to officers to make an order to that effect. What this report is doing is seeking an amendment to the authority that members have given to officers so that it reflects the decision that members have made just now in the previous item and in the February decision on application 183. At the briefing last week, members asked for officers to prepare a plan with the recommendation routes over the planning permission layout, which is Plan 6, which was forwarded last week and was with the committee papers and is the one that's on the screen at the moment. So the question is basically whether members will authorise an amendment to the previous authority given to officers to go ahead with an order under section 257 of the Town and Country Planning Act, which is to extinguish the routes that are shown on Plan 6 in bold, and to provide the routes that fit in with the development layout. Thank you, Chair.
Just to clarify, Jonathan, do you wish to speak again? Yeah, okay.
Mr. Jonathan, you got 3 minutes to speak on.
Okay. When we last met and this meeting was stopped, I had the impression that the members of the committee would actually walk at least the footpath through to 183. Did the committee walk the footpath through to 183 as part of their briefing? Sorry, Chair. Yeah. Did the committee walk the footpath route to 183 as part of the briefing?
Sorry, Chair. The briefing took place in the reception room across the corridor here. Members attended a site visit prior to consideration of an earlier matter at Clayton Fields. And when members visited the site, we pointed out various aspects of the site when we went to Clayton Fields previously at a formal site visit prior to a previous meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Well, Giles has just used about a minute of my time there. Giles and Marcus and I walked the route. We'd walked it previously a number of times, but at least a week before. The route that you've just voted as a public right-of-way, and you're just about to dissolve as a public right-of-way, was not the route that we walked. We've said this repeatedly. It is the route that is shown on the proposed stopping up application. The routes that you have before you, that the officers have come up with, are the routes which actually fit the footpaths, predominantly fit the footpaths of the roads in the development. And basically the realignment of the routes that you're going to vote for now are basically footpath routes. 183 protected the woodland along Clayton Dyke. The woodland walk, which is a condition in the planning permission, has now disappeared from the routes. And we have an email from a few years ago saying that the developer had no intention, if they could avoid it, of building that woodland walk. So you're about to vote for the degrading, the serious degrading of the best parts of the environment on Clayton Fields.
Thank you, Jonathan. I ask legal officer to answer the question. Yeah, thank you.
I just want to make it clear that for members who didn't attend the briefing about that we had privately to explain the nature of the routes. An application for a definitive map modification order isn't like a planning application. It isn't that precise. An application for a planning permission is a set of plans which are detailed and technical and exactly precise. An application for a definitive map modification order is an applicant who is seeking to have the council accept a public right-of-way over an indicative route on the land. The council then has to advertise that and seek from other members of the public and from its own records evidence to support or refute that application. Hence, a deviation in the routes which you see on different plans for a particular application.
Thank you, Deborah. Any more?
That's it, Chair.
Yeah. Members. Councillor Sims.
Yeah, move officer's recommendations as spelled out by the officer at the start of this section of the meeting. I think members of the public should be aware that we have gone into great depth deciding this report. Whichever way we'd have gone, it wouldn't have been happy with some people. I think the truth is that, and it's sad in a way, that it's going to take place. There's going to be some building on that land. The case has gone on for a long number of years, and I think this hopefully will now start to bring this closure on this site, and hopefully that officers, while the building is going on this site, ensure with enforcement that the rights of way, etc., and the saving of trees and some of the environment takes place properly. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
No enforcement has taken place so far.
Councillor James Home.
I'll second that,
Yeah, thank you. Any more members to speak? No? Now then, are you in favour of officers' recommendation as proposed and proposed by Councillor Sims and second by Home Board? Yeah? All in favour?
7, Chair.
Thank you. Abstain? Yeah. 1, 2, yeah. 2.
It's approved.
Now we move to planning application number 2018/90413. It's a Thorpe Lane, Almumbury, page 97. Sorry, Nick Hurst, yeah, officer.
Thank you, Chair. As stated, I am Nick Hurst, case officer for the application. This application seeks a change of use from a dwelling house to a mixed-use dwelling house and training centre. The application is brought to committee at the request of Councillor Hughes over highways concerns. The proposal is retrospective, however the application seeks longer hours of use than they have currently been operating. The site is within Almonbury Conservation Area, access from a private drive from Thorpe Grange Gardens, close to the junction with Thorpe Lane. Thorpe Grange dwelling house itself is a large detached manor. The house is not to be changed as part of the proposal, remaining residential. The site's detached garage, which can be seen to the front here, is or has been converted into a training centre for mature students. It teaches skills including sewing and upholstery. The current image shows a private drive into the site, which would be used by students and residents. And I'll just flick through the photos which members saw on site this morning. Showing the state of the junction. Nine representations have been received in objection to the proposal, along with Councillor Hughes' concerns, principally relating to highways. The maximum number of students on site is to be limited, via condition, to 13. 17 parking spaces are to be provided on site, again secured via condition. This allows for 1 parking space per student, 3 for dwellings and 1 spare parking space. Although 1 parking space per student is available, this is not anticipated to be used as the site is within walking distance from Almonbury Village Centre. As such, officers are satisfied that the site can accommodate sufficient parking for the proposed use. Turning to the impact on Thorpe Lane, as sufficient parking spaces are to be provided for the development on site, on-street parking should not take place. The proposed hours of use and specified class times are outside of peak travel times. Classes are limited to two per day, over the Mondays and Tuesdays, when an additional evening class will take place, although numbers will be reduced on this class. Officers conclude that the brief period of traffic movement before and after training sessions during hours outside of peak travel times will not materially impact upon the highway safety. In summary, policy looks to support new businesses and training and education facilities. Officers are satisfied that, subject to the listed condition, the proposal complies with the relevant planning policies. Therefore, officers recommend approval. Nothing further to add, Chair.
Highways? Thank you.
Chair. We have Vivian up, who objects to the proposal.
Good afternoon. Trevor and I have lived in Almonbury since 1969, directly opposite the junction with Thorpe Lane, in which the Manor House exits. Initially, I walked young children to village schools via Thorpe Lane, experiencing the traffic pedestrian difficulties round the Blind Bend and the top of Thorpe Lane, which Trevor will speak about later. Like other residents, we had no idea our peaceful estate would be turned into a commercial area by the development of a business centre with many cars in and out 3 times daily, 6 days a week, until 9 p.m. on some of these, with the possibility of adding Sundays. We have never been consulted at any point by the Manor House about these plans. The noise of car doors from driver access alone, without any loading and unloading of materials and sometimes furniture, will carry to everyone, especially after dark. Some of our families have young children, while some residents live alone. They chose to live in a peaceful area away from traffic noise. We registered our protests in March, but received no notification of this hearing. You must have all our details at the council offices. Is this normal practice? This business has been running several months already, apparently without permission. We're not sure how this happens, is how it's allowed. The electric gates to the premises have to be opened for every access, often causing a queue when the students are coming. Delivery vans are often too large to manoeuvre inside the premises, particularly if there are already several parked cars there. They have to reverse back and manoeuvre in front of our back garden, causing a difficulty at the junction with Thorpe Lane. Very often, lorries and cars come down Thorpe Lane, turn around in front of us because it is so difficult to make progress further down Thorpe Lane.
30 minutes left, yeah, 30.
Thank you. The reason is the Manor House Cottage have their tenants' cars parked on the pavement directly on the blind bend when they are not at work. Everyone coming from Lower Thorpe Lane and Dartmouth Avenue complains bitterly about these tenants' cars blocking the footpath and sight lines for cars.
Thank you. Just in time. Next. Yeah, thank you. You got 3 minutes to speak, yeah.
I have lived with my wife at number 1 Thorpe Grange Gardens since 2010, overlooking Thorpe Lane and the slip road to Thorpe Grange Manor. Traffic has increased in this time. My concern is now that this planning application will place more pressure with increased cars on an already outmoded road system. Thorpe Lane, above Thorpe Grange Gardens and my house, is narrow, made even more so by cars constantly parked down one side, making the road virtually one lane. Considerable manoeuvring is often needed to pass other cars. More worryingly, this one lane forces, and I say force, pedestrians against the wall as there is no pavement. This particularly applies to young mothers with pushchairs, the elderly, and those with mobility scooters. School children regularly use the road, not just at 3 p.m, as school times now are very varied with out-of-school activities and exam leave from secondary schools. The top of the road is a very tricky junction onto the main road, Northgate, just at the point where there is a pedestrian crossing. Much reversing and courtesy is already needed as cars reverse to accommodate each other. Lorries also stop to deliver at the charity shop, and a lorry delivers to the bowling club. The speed limit of 20 miles an hour is often ignored. By Thorpe Grange Manor itself, there is a very nasty blind bend. All drivers who live lower down Thorpe Lane, in the estates around Dartmouth Avenue, complain of the dangers here. This is made worse by the fact that the tenants of number 20 Thorpe Lane, owned by the manor, have had to park their cars on this bend. Cars and lorries often come down to Thorpe Grange. Cars and lorries often come down to Thorpe Grange Gardens to turn round from the village. So the junction of Thorpe Lane and Thorpe Grange Gardens is often a congestion point. This was demonstrated when the upholstery business started some months ago, and many cars were parked around this junction. Emergency vehicles are also handicapped by these parking problems. All these problems will be exacerbated if the business develops
30 minutes
and
left.
there are yet more deliveries and cars till 9 p.m. at night. A residential and conservation area will be turned into a commercial area with yet more lorries, cars and vans and noise far into the evening.
Thank you. Next.
We have Carolyn Sell. Come that way if you want.
Yeah. Thank you. You got 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you. I have lived in Thorpe Grange Gardens since February 2008 and have enjoyed the peace and tranquility for 10 years. The development of a business so close by is definitely something I never envisaged, and I'm appalled at the idea. The traffic situation has increased gradually in Thorpe Lane since I moved here, but has remained manageable. The prospect of an increase on the scale envisaged will, in my opinion, make it extremely difficult for traffic flow and also dangerous for the many pedestrians, including school children, who use the road on a day-to-day basis at whatever time of the day. It is not only the extra vehicles using Thorpe Lane, but also the delivery vans and trucks delivering to Thorpe Grange Manor, which to do so drive into Thorpe Grange Gardens before turning left towards the gates of the manor. At certain times of the day, particularly at changeover times, there could be difficulties with the amount of traffic using the same entrance and exit. Although Leylandii trees have unfortunately been planted along the full length of the boundary between Thorpe Grange Manor and Thorpe Grange Gardens at the rear of my property, this runs parallel to the parking arrangements as per the plan at the rear of Thorpe Grange Manor. And I feel it is an infringement on my privacy to have cars leaving the site at 9 p.m. 2 evenings per week. We believe it is the manor's responsibility to allow their tenants safe parking inside their premises. The only alternative is to park higher up the lane if there is a space, and that is increasingly problematic because of the heavy volume of traffic. Finally, we believe little thought has been given to the effects upon our estate residents and to the drastic traffic and pedestrian situation in Thorpe Lane itself. Alternative premises for the business would seem to be the answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Judy Few.
Councillor.
The entrance, Thorpe Lane itself. Okay.
Councillor Hughes, you got 5 minutes to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I reported this to enforcement after being asked by residents to visit Thorpe Grange Gardens due to issues with traffic parked on Thorpe Lane blocking sightlines and becoming dangerous back in October 2017. The building in question in the past has been a business. However, back in 2006, Thorpe Grange Gardens was built in the car park of the previous businesses, and a condition was that the manor was converted back into a residence due to the highways issues the new development would bring. A condition to maintain a pedestrian route on a path that originates in Thorpe Grange Gardens was included in the application for Thorpe Grange Gardens, but wasn't enforceable, as it turned out it wasn't a public right-of-way, and Thorpe Lane itself had to become the pedestrian route. In recent years, one of the outbuildings was converted into a residence that is let out to tenants, and as you've heard, the tenants had to park on Thorpe Lane, which has caused issues with sightlines when leaving Thorpe Grange Gardens. When I visited in October, there was only a limited amount of classes running, which was causing chaos. This application now wants to extend the hours of use to 6 days a week until 9 p.m. at night in what is now a residential area. The application states that this would only impact on number 20. Number 20 is owned by the applicant, so therefore there would not be an objection. However, it does not deal with the impact on houses on Thorpe Grange Gardens, particularly numbers 1, 3 and 5, whose bedrooms overlook the proposed car park. This car park will result in noise with car doors slamming and people talking. The application does not deal with the issues of deliveries that at the moment are causing issues with large lorries having to reverse out onto Thorpe Lane. With the intensification of the business, these deliveries will become more frequent, and the only way to access the site is to come through Thorpe Grange Gardens. The application also dismisses my concerns about the schools in the area and the fact that Thorpe Lane is the walking route into the village. The officer has not highlighted there are 2 other schools, King James's and All Hallows, and the playgroup on the grounds of All Hallows. Children and parents with pushchairs regularly walk up Thorpe Lane into the village, and the road is narrow with no pavement and a blind bend. The hours of use will conflict with both the ending of school at 3 p.m. and the end of the playgroup at midday. This is already a dangerous situation at the top of Thorpe Lane, as cars are parking, and if a car is travelling up Thorpe Lane and one turns into Thorpe Lane from the village, It often results in the car entering having to reverse out into the main road where there is a pedestrian crossing. Extra traffic is going to exacerbate this situation. The application states there will be only 13 students. However, there will be 3 classes some days, which will be 78 trips in and out of the development. The applicant is also applying to run a class on a Saturday. However, during the summer, the bowling club has matches on a Saturday, which results in parked cars on Salt Lane. Therefore, this will conflict with the activity at the manor. This business has been operating without permission for some time now, and they are asking for 6 days a week usage, Monday to Saturday. But their website is offering weekends courses, which is not what they have sought permission to run on a Sunday. The landai has been planted possibly to say that noise at the car park will be mitigated by this planting. However, there are already some mature landai trees at the bottom end of Thorpe Grange Gardens that have caused stress to the residents in the apartments. The landai comes under the Antisocial Behaviour Act of 2003, and advice that is given with regards to the landai is not to grow the landai that will affect the reasonable enjoyment of neighbours, and this includes cutting out light and blocking a cherished view. The landai is already blocking out light in the apartments, and once the new landai is grown, it will block out light for the properties at numbers 1, 3 and 5. So I'm asking you to refuse this application on over-intensification of the site, highways issues including an increase in deliveries and impact on the residential area.
Thank you. We have Anthony Dyson, who is the applicant.
Thank you. You got 3 minutes to speak, yeah?
Thank you. Firstly, I'd like to thank Nick Hurst for his help with this application and state that we're happy to accept the conditions outlined in his report. These conditions limit when classes can operate, and whilst we have no wish to operate 6 days a week or every weekend and evening, as people have said, we welcome the flexibility that these hours give us. Thorpe Grange has had varied roles over the years, including a restaurant, a care home, a training centre owned by the council and, of course, a private residence. Even now, being used as the upholstery school, there is substantially less traffic than in previous years. We have asked permission to operate with 13 students, but this rarely happens. Often class sizes are 9, 10 or even less due to students missing class. We can prove that also. As for student parking and traffic issues, the joining instruction on our website outlines arrangements for all students. They're told to park in Thorpe Grange Manor, and we actively manage parking within our grounds. We also monitor students if they go into Thorpe Lane and Thorpe Grange Gardens and ask them to move. This doesn't happen anymore. And not all students drive. Some use the bus and some walk. We've employed the architect to produce the plans that have been shown, and this 17-vehicle parking works. As for students parking in Thorpe Grange Gardens, it simply doesn't happen. The class start and end times are outside of peak hours and work traffic and school traffic. This will actually minimise local impact. We have been operating the current hours since October 2017, and there's been no record of accidents or near misses. There is simply no evidence of traffic problems caused by parking or vehicles of students at Manor House. As Councillor Munro suggested, our gates are open from around 8:30 and remain open until all students have left. Classes begin at 9:30, so even if some students arrive early, there is no risk of them causing congestion. People have mentioned the trees that have been planted, and that's fine, they are planted. They block views from our garden, which is fine. On a more general note, my wife Jan set up Manor House when Kirklees College removed funding for certain aspects of adult education. She was previously a student and worked for them as a tutor. Many of the students come to class, see it as a social event as well as a learning event. They enjoy it because the environment is welcoming, their fellow students are friendly and like-minded, and they learn new skills in the process. They receive multiple benefits by being there. Some of our students travel from as far afield as Barnsley, Hebden Bridge, Saddleworth and Leeds and represent a wide cross-section of society. This is what makes the classes interesting. The skills taught are a mixture of modern and traditional, and the classes fill a gap in the market, and there's a risk that these skills will be lost if classes like these are not supported. The volume of inquiries we receive prove that people want to learn, some for recreational reasons and others to set up their small businesses. In summary, Manor House is a new local business set up and run by a local woman, and it contributes to the local economy in many ways.
Thank you.
Yeah. Members. Councillor Harpreet Uppal.
Oh, hi. I just wanted to ask a question about lorry deliveries. I don't know if there's something that can be done around that, because I understand if it's near a residential area that could potentially cause a lot of distress to residents with noise and impact to noise. And would there be an expectation of when we would want deliveries coming through from lorries?
Through you, Chair, yes. If members so wish, we can impose an additional condition restricting when deliveries are to take place.
Councillor Homewood.
Yeah, can I just ask about the session times? So obviously there's the hours of use, and then there's the proposed class times, and I just wondered about particularly the afternoon session. I think the point's been made about that finish time being kind of exactly in line with school finishing times, which does seem a little bit, if we have the option, could that not be reduced to earlier, so that any traffic created by students leaving wouldn't kind of directly align with the time that children are going to be walking away from the school, if it was 2:30, for example. I don't know whether that's come from your direction or whether that was something that's come from the applicant as the time that they wish to operate within.
Through you, Chair. Through you, Chair. These were the hours requested by the applicant, which they have been operating since they came into use, particularly the day ones. Again, if members so wish, we can impose the hours you consider reasonable, if you would like to reduce or increase them, potentially. Or we could be deferred back to members to negotiate, back to officers to negotiate with them.
Yeah, I think there is some further thought that needs to go into the opening times. And is there any chance that can be deferred, and we can go back and consult and find out what it is that's going to work best?
Can I ask the highway officer? Some points have been raised by Councillor Hughes about parking issues again.
Through you, Chair. Jamie Turner, Highways Development Management. Yeah, I think some of the issues raised currently, I mean, it's up and running. They probably fit about 9 or 10 cars on within their grounds. That'll be increased to 17 spaces, which 13 students will be 13 spaces. So any on-street parking that's occurring now is likely to be moved in-house rather than on the street. And this may change, but just looking at the times, there's half-hour stagger between classes. So whilst there shouldn't be really any conflict with vehicles coming in, at times vehicles are coming out and vice versa. So although we can't change anything about Thorpe Lane itself, I think it's an improvement on what's already there. Yeah. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Homewood.
I think what was being said, as I appreciate that there's a gap between the 12 and 12:30 start times to look at. So are we saying, because the operation hours there between 9:30 and 4, so are we saying, for example, if the class time was 1:30 till 4, does that cause additional issues because the traffic is busier at 4 o'clock? I'm just thinking of in relation to the school issue and people using it for walking purposes. I think there needs to be some flexibility there to work within that. Just one other point that was made before about number 20 Thorpe Lane. I just wondered, because it sounds like the cars that are parking there are from that property, and I just wondered what the arrangement was there, and why within the Thorpe Manor that the parking for people who live in that property isn't facilitated there. If we're saying there's more parking spaces than students, and that house is owned and rented by the people living there, could that not be an accommodation that could be made as well? Because it just does seem strange that we would have that situation occurring.
Through you, Chair, number 20 is not part of the application site, and although it's been stated that it's owned
by the applicants and tenanted by that. We don't have proof before us today that that's the case, so we wouldn't be able to control it today under that, under what you're saying today. But it wouldn't be possible today to say that we could do that.
Can I ask, Councillor Sheikhoullah have proposed to defer this item because some issues still haven't been resolved. If the officer go back and look into that, is that proposal second by? Thank you.
Are we going back to clarify what we're going back to discuss?
Yeah. Sheikh, can you clarify those?
Yeah, it was just basically around the times. I think they are a little bit confusing, and I think this half an hour gap, classes could run over, various things could happen. I think that needs a little bit more discussion on. There was the thing about the deliveries of the vans. I think there's more clarity that needs. When are they coming? What is coming? How big are the vans?
So yeah, we can condition that going.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a difficult one, this, because if you look back at the history, it was a residential home for the elderly where there would be visitors, etc. in the past, a considerable amount of vehicles. I understand what the public are saying, but I think if we defer it, then we can look at a management plan of traffic, etc. The only downside I have is that it's retrospective, and once again we've got something before us that they've just done and not sought permission for before they've done it. So I'm not happy with that, but I'll go along with deferment and let's see what we can come up with of a traffic management plan, both for students and probably opening hours. 9 o'clock, in that sort of place might be too late. Probably 8:30 to be better. And a plan for commercial vehicles when they can deliver, etc. Thank you.
Councillor Humber.
Yeah, I was just going to say I was going to actually just pretty much say the same thing there. That I think what would be helpful is just to have some clarification about the times of the classes and how that works in the whole network. Have we considered, when do we have more pedestrian use of that area? If the classes were to say finish at 4 hours and 3, would that help the situation? Just a little bit more information about that. And just on the point about number 20, I appreciate it's not part of this application. I was just suggesting maybe it's something that we could discuss with the applicant to improve the situation if they're willing to do that, but I appreciate it's not anything that's enforceable.
So just basically what Ken and James have said, just that. But I'm just a little confused in terms of delivery vans. It's a training centre. What are they delivering? Is it books or something? And surely you need a van for that. Sewing.
So it's been a mover to defer, and Teresa will set out members have set it out to traffic management plan, including deliveries and hours of use. Yeah.
Councillor Bellamy.
Maybe with the deliveries, I'm presuming it's probably great big rolls of material of some sort. It may be worth, because if perhaps part of the problem is they can't turn around and they have to back out, look at part of the delivery management, look at banksmen to help back them out, part of the delivery management plan.
Yeah, Councillor Sam said second.
Items deferred.
Thank you.
So we're back to
15 now. Item 15,
Yeah, 15.
aren't we? Yeah.
Members, quiet please. Can we go back to item number 15? Planning application number 2018/90151, page number 69, Yew Tree Road, Burton Cleft. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Adam Walker. I'm the case officer on this application. It's an outline application for residential development with the point of access the only matter to be considered. This aerial photograph identifies the site with the red line. It's a field, it's generally flat, got trees within part of the site which are mainly conifers and some protected woodland towards the southwest. It's POL, provisional open land in the UDP, and it's allocated for housing in the emerging local plan. Just to provide some planning context to this site and this application, see highlighted these other parcels of land which are subject to either approved development or some planned development where we've got some live applications. So the ones in purple, so the land to the north of the site, that's part of the Harron Homes development for 95 dwellings in this area. And it also includes this parcel of land here. There's an outline application next door to the site on the adjacent field, and we've recently received an application, another outline application for residential development on this parcel to the rear. So in terms of numbers, what's approved, it's 50 on here, and then 30 on this part, and then 15 down here as part of Harron Homes, so 95 total there. That's outline for 10, and that's outline and the vindicated nominally 20 units on there. Just the orange on that map just shows the emerging housing allocation, just to show how it ties in, how the site ties in with the strategic plan for the area. Now, having regard to the UDP and the emerging land allocation, officers consider the principle of residential development on the site to be acceptable. So in terms of the proposed access, which is the matter which we're considering along with the principle of development, it's a simple priority junction along the site frontage with Yew Tree Road. It's located immediately opposite the approved access for the Harron Home site, which would serve 50 units. Officers consider this to be the most appropriate location. The general design of the junction mirrors that already approved for the Harron Home site. The application next door to the site, just over here, they're proposing a priority junction onto Yew Tree Road as well, and we've assessed the two applications side by side, and officers are satisfied that those two junctions are compatible. So in summary, the proposed access is considered to be acceptable. As detailed in the report, ecological and drainage matters are fully addressed within the report, and conditions are necessary to deal with those matters. In terms of planning obligations, there's a requirement to provide public open space, and that either be on or off site, a contribution towards highway improvement works on Halifax Road, as well as a contribution towards sustainable travel. Now, that sustainable travel contribution could be for metro cars, or it could be for some other kind of highway improvements within the immediate vicinity of the site, as members see fit. If the development ends up exceeding 10 dwellings, then affordable housing would apply. That would kick in when we consider layout as reserved matters. So in conclusion, the principle of development is accepted and the proposed point of access is acceptable. The recommendation is to delegate approval to enable officers to secure the Section 106 and impose all appropriate and necessary conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
We have Malcolm Sizer, who's speaking on behalf of the applicant.
You got 3 minutes, Malcolm.
Thank you, Chair. I've really got very little to add to Adam's presentation. You'll see that the officer recommendation is to approve the application subject once a Section 106 obligation has been signed, which will require a financial contribution to be paid for off-site highway improvement works. I would ask you to accept that recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Members.
I know this is not to be discussed at this stage necessarily, but I just wanted to make a point about the objection from the local flood authority, just about the drainage scheme, and just hope that this will be considered at a future date, yes, if it was accepted.
Through you, Chair, yes, a detailed drainage design would be secured by condition,
Okay.
and they would need to satisfy the lead local flood authority of those details.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Please, Bob.
Thanks, Chair. Obviously, this falls in my patch as Lillywall councillor, and what we'd like to say is that my fellow councillors for the ward have quite a lot of reservations with the amount of planning that is going on in our ward and the building that's already in place. In this particular area, the roads are rather narrow, and the access along sort of Burn Road into Halifax Road, Yew Tree Road into Halifax Road are a nightmare as they are. Increased traffic flow from what is already being built, and any more that could be built there will need to be a vast fortune of money invested to improve those junctions. The only access that I can see is that they will have to go into Grimesca Road, which feeds into the road coming out of Brighouse to the Ainley Top roundabout. Ainley Top roundabout, many an argument over the nightmare that people have there. So we have reservations about the roadwork network around this planning, and as it is in my ward, I don't actually propose to vote on this. That's all I'd like to say.
Any more members?
Thank you, Chair. I know the only thing we can sort of discuss is access. I do have concerns, and it is sort of Yew Tree Road. How many accesses is there going to be on Yew Tree Road? You know, I mean, when you showed that, the one with all the red on, and you see how many building plots basically there is going to be when they're all built with the Aaron homes and all the other homes, how many accesses is there going to be then down on there from all them building plots? Because to me it just looks swamped with buildings and houses, and it's quite frightening, to be honest, because it just looks like the whole of that area is just going to be built on.
Through you, Chair, Steve Sampson, Highways Development Management. In relation to the information we know, if you don't mind, Adam, pointing the accesses out on the consented Harrons site. On the top parcel, there is one access. On the north-eastern parcel, another access there. Further down south, there's another access there. At the location of that access, the priorities will be changing for Burn Road, making a short section one way for Burn Road in from Halifax Road. This was assessed in the cumulative assessment of the total application in 2014 for 190, bear with me, 190 residential units. It came in later on, and it came in for a reduced number of 90 units. So the actual whole area was assessed on 190 units with a raft of highway improvements. To carry on with the answer of the number of accesses, so the application site, which is expected to be for around circa 10 units, that's another access. Then to the east, a further access has been applied for around 10 units, and then further down an application has been received for 2 accesses off this site, which is currently being assessed. There's been no detailed assessment of this access, but be assured, from our point of view, they will be assessed in relation to their operational capacities and requirements, and also about the arrangement in their spacings and such. But we have to take the applications obviously each on its merits, but also on what they're serving as well. I mean, some of these are quite small parcels of development. Now, the application itself it's been moved about it being a crossroads. Well, we are opposite the accesses, but it's not a real crossroads in the fact that traffic wants to go across the road because it's such a small development. It'd only be a crossroad if it was a through route and traffic was wanting to cross it. So in relation to its arrangement, it's felt it's a lot safer when drivers can actually see each other before turning out and give way. Thank you, Chair.
Any more members? Councillor Eastwood,
Yeah, I think Debbie Nerves got the better of me earlier, but I will be voting.
Councillor Uppa.
Just reading one of the officer responses about sustainable travel, and it's been said that it would be considered appropriate. Again, would you be looking at more of that detail if it was accepted at this stage, at the next stage? Sorry if I'm not making any sense here.
Through you, Chair, yeah, the sustainable travel contribution, that would be dependent on the number of houses on the site. At this point, we don't know how many there are. But a calculation would be made based on how much one Metro card costs per dwelling, which I think is about £490. So it would be a financial contribution, and then that could then be used either to supply Metro cards for future residents or potentially for some other kind of improvement works within the vicinity, for example, upgrading a footpath route that is very close to the site. But the money will be secured through or via a condition and then ultimately probably by a Section 106 obligation.
Councillor Homeboard.
Yeah, it was just following up what Councillor Bellamy said. I think the point being made was what's the sort of strategic plan for the housing across that area in terms of accesses and links. And it is quite, when you're seeing just isolated elements, I don't know whether these are all separate landowners, whether they're just putting in individual applications. I don't know what the strategy is in terms of the access to all these different sites and how it's going to work. I don't know whether that's something you can show us in a future, a briefing or something to us, just to kind of, so we understand better the full, what the strategic view of how this whole development's going to work. Because I think it does seem, are we just making, is it because they're just individual applications? Is it actually the best strategy for the entire site? I don't, for the whole area, I don't know the answer to that. It may well be, but I think it is quite difficult when you're just seeing sort of 10 houses at a time.
You have to assess each application on its own merits, so you do have to take each application. They do come forward individually. I think what Steve was trying to show you on the plan with the different coloured plot areas, some of them have full planning permissions, like the two large purple allocations, which was the Harron Home scheme that's currently on site. So we know exactly where those locations of accesses are. The red line boundary plan, again, you're being asked to approve that today, so you know exactly where that location is. And then the green one is a pending, is that a approved or a pending application? A pending, so again, that needs to be approved, but we know where it's going to be, except we're doing mouse cursors on a plan that doesn't quite show you exactly a superimposed image of each of those planning applications, but we do have that information, so we are comfortable that they sit comfortably within each other, how they interact with each other, and that's part of the assessment of the cumulative effect of those 5 fields coming forward in a phased way. But they are individual applications ultimately.
Can I say myself from the chair, right? Councillor Eastwood had raised the narrow road, busy traffic, so and so. I think members know we have an air quality scheme funded by the West Yorkshire Funding and the Transport Committee, which is going, consultation is going. It's a big scheme. It will improve the area. And we got a good scheme. There's housing, yeah. I don't think that we can turn around and say no. I think it's a good scheme. If we put some condition like a contribution towards improvement of pedestrian and cycle route is part of the air quality scheme, I propose from the chair, I think we move the officer recommendation to accept it. Thank you. Councillor Harper.
Yeah, just what you've said on air quality, really, I think reading the report, I do have some concerns about that, and I would like to see perhaps a bit more detail in the conditions around that, really, just so I'm clear in terms of what can be done to mitigate the impact.
When the application come back and further in detail, we will look into all those details. Thank you. Well, some member second me. All in favour? Officer recommendation.
Just keep your hands raised, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4. That's 5. 4 officer recommendation.
Against?
None.
The rest are abstain.
Abstain. Thank you. Application number 218/91198 Westcroft Honley Home Farm, page 87. Yes.
Right, thank you very much, Chair. My name is Bill Toppin. I'm a case officer for this proposal, and this is one that you undertook a site visit on this morning. The site is 0.72 of a hectare. It's located on the northern side of Westcroft. It's flanked by housing to the west, on the south, the opposite side of the road, and to the east. The site is a green field. There are trees across the site, including one in the middle and a number on this boundary here. And at this point to the north, it slopes down quite steeply to Scott Gate. This site is adjacent to the Honley Conservation Area. This is the boundary of the conservation area from this point inwards, its conservation area. Sites allocated for housing on the Unitary Development Plan and also allocated for housing on the Emerging Local Plan. Outline permission sought for residential use of the site with all matters reserved. There is an indicative layout provided, but as I say, all matters, including layout siting, are to be reserved. Principal issues before you. As I said earlier, the site is allocated for housing in both the UDP and the Emerging Local Plan. Guidance in the National Planning Policy Framework, para 14, indicates that development which accords with the development plan should be permitted without delay. Also, we're still in a situation where we do not have or unable to demonstrate a 5-year housing supply, and as such the presumption in the National Planning Policy Framework is in favour of sustainable housing schemes. This is considered to be a sustainable location, as such we're raising no objection to it being released for housing at this stage. Clearly, if this is granted, all reserved matters, including siting, layout, landscaping, access, scale, will all have to come back in for approval, and they will be publicised so that neighbours will be able to make any comments they wish on those. Regarding trees on this site, there are a number of trees across the site, including one right smack in the middle of the site there, which is a sycamore tree there. It's right in the middle of the site. This has actually received permission under the felling licence to be felled because it's in an extreme state of decay. However, as part of that approval, which is a TPO approval, a replacement tree, an oak tree, is to be placed on or about this location. So obviously, if this is granted and reserved matters comes in, any layout coming in the future will need to take cognizance of that tree and give it obviously space to grow. Our recommendation is for outline approval, delegate to officers to issue the decision notice with the conditions that are listed on at the back of your report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Speaker. Two speakers for this. We have Helen Reddow, who objects to the proposal.
Helen, you got 3 minutes to speak.
Hello, thank you very much.
Basically, this field's been around since Westcroft was built nearly 50 years ago. It's well used by dog walkers and children alike. There is an established and well-used footpath between Westcroft and Scottgate. It is home to several mature trees, not just the one in the middle, including the enormous sycamore tree. And it's deemed to be unsafe due to internal decay. But it's interesting to note that in the recent strong windstorm, where loads of trees blew down, it's still standing. So you kind of wonder about that. Anyway, there we go. I know the committee have been to the site visit this morning, and the field itself, when you look at it, it might not look particularly attractive, and it's been deemed to be ecologically unimportant. But in this day and age of declining insect and bird populations, no green space that has never been touched by pesticides or disturbed should be underestimated as not important ecologically or for the environment. The other thing that I don't know whether people have really considered this, it is mentioned in the report, is the fact that it is an enormous soakaway. And if this field is developed, you know, you've really got to think about where's that rain going to go. And currently, at the moment, at the back of Westcroft, there is the Scottgate, and there's a big steep bankment down to quite a big housing development. And we know in the past, the water is just going to run down, and those houses down there, they don't stand a chance. There's a whacking big sort of stream that goes through it anyway. And the banking as well has been eroded over the years, and that's just with normal rainwater. And the outline development plan is also planning to put houses on Scottgate Road as well. So you put those houses on, you've got a massive flood problem, and that'll come back to the council. The developers won't care. They'll have moved on, made their profit. Anyway, Westcroft itself has also had problems with flooding and drainage. So again, that could be a problem. The extra houses, you've got your extra traffic. It's like an elongated cul-de-sac, so there's only 2 exits on one side.
30 seconds.
So there's the increased danger for children playing with the increased traffic. We went for planning permission in 2006. It was rejected on the grounds that Kirklees had enough brown land to develop it. I know that's changed, but it doesn't make it right. Why we're going after green space when there's brown space still available. And even the Home Valley Parish Council doesn't support this application. So I'm just saying, when green land's gone, it's gone. You need to consider that. Okay.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, councillors.
Good afternoon. You've got 3 minutes to speak. Yeah.
Thank you. Just to reiterate, really, what Bill Toppin said in his report, it is an allocated site. It's been reassessed as part of the emerging local plan, and again allocated for housing. Obviously, understand concerns. I was actually quite surprised at sort of how few objectors actually sort of came to speak. It is private land. It is an allocated site, and all matters are reserved. So I've just asked the committee to endorse the officer's report, please. Thank you.
Members. If none, I move the officer recommendation.
Just going to add, we had a discussion when we went to the site visit this morning as well about whether the reserved matters would come back to the committee to look at, because I think it would, with the issues that have been raised around the drainage, the layout with the trees, and also access, whether it's possible to have an access through to Scottgate, I think would be good for us, I think, to see it again, although I'm happy to second Councillor Sokol on the outline.
Thank you. All in favour? Each application, officer recommendation approved. Yeah, thank you. Number 18. Planning application number 216/20 91200, page 111. Oh. William Semco.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. My name is William Simcock and I am the case officer for this application. 23 Spellwood Top is a detached dwelling at the end of a row of traditional terraced houses. On the north side, which is the left on the photograph, is an outbuilding, formerly a bakehouse, that's recently been renovated. The property has recently undergone some renovation, extensions and other works, some of which form part of this application. The proposed development, as shown in these plans, comprise the erection of a single-storey rear roof extension, the new rear retaining wall, and a front porch and alterations. Back to the photographs. This is the front elevations from the street. This is the rear elevation, and some closer views of the same elevation with the bakehouse, former bakehouse in the background. And this shows the roof extension as built. And here are some alternative views of the property. And this, for next one for information, is the property as it stood at a much early stage in the works, which was shortly after the application was submitted. It is now proposed that the rear roof extension will be modified with a new eaves overhang, so it will give the impression of being a dormer. And the other aspects of the development have been predominantly completed, except for the porch. Now, officers' view is that while some aspects of the scheme, including the rear extension, could have been better designed, they are very similar in terms of scale and design to what could have been done anyway under permitted development rights for a detached house, and are therefore considered satisfactory subject to the conditions as set out in the report. The application has attracted numerous objections, all of which are summarised in the report with officer responses. As for the alleged unauthorised use of the bakehouse as a separate dwelling, an application for a certificate of lawful use has recently been submitted and is expected to be determined under delegated powers. It does not form part of this application, and its officers have therefore not treated this as a material consideration. It is therefore recommended that permission is granted for the application, subject to the conditions set out in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Speakers? Councillor Turner, you've got 5 minutes to speak.
Thank you. This isn't all my speech for today. This is just a few of the emails and images that we've had as ward councillors, because this case has been ongoing for over 2 years. And as ward councillors, we've had very many complaints about this development. I've just tried to summarise what I think are the key issues for the Planning Committee today. First, the application states that there are no trees adjoining the property and none that need to be removed or pruned. This is because he already removed the trees on council land without permission. And this is currently with legal services. We're just waiting to hear what happened at the court hearing, which was scheduled for the 11th of June. If this application is to go ahead, I think the conditions should include the removal of the spoil, which has changed the landscape, and the replacement of several trees. On the plans up there, on the existing side, there's a side to elevation, and you'll see a large crack down the outside wall. The previous neighbours were told that this house needs underpinning to make it safe, and this is probably why the crack is there. We have not had any confirmation that the house has been made safe, so as far as we know, it is still a risk to the adjacent property. And as I said the previous neighbours because they felt the need to move due to the actions of the applicant. The applicant has built out at the back, which I don't believe he owns. The lane behind the house is used to provide access for all the properties along Sparwood Top, and they used to be able to turn the vehicles at the end of the lane. The applicant has built across the turning area and therefore reduced the vehicle access for other residents. And I believe that the applicant has built on public land, which is a valued asset to other residents, and we would oppose the sale of the land to the applicant. We also have many concerns relating to the old bakehouse, which used to be joined to 23 Sparwood Top until very recently. But I realise that is a separate application, and that we will probably refer to this committee very shortly. Finally, I'd like to just take the chance to emphasise to the applicant that there is no parking associated with this application, and no one has any preferential rights to park on the public highway. In summary, I think this application, as it is, should be refused, that the extension to the back should be taken down and the land restored, that the trees should be replaced, and that the renovated building be inspected to ensure it is safe, that it is not a risk to any of the neighbours. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Turner.
Mr. Patel, do you wish to address the committee? Mr. Patel, the applicant.
Mr. Patel, you got 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you, Chair. My father used to drive on this road. My parents emigrated in the early 60s. After spending 5 decades serving the corporation as a bus driver, I recall living a few hundred yards away from this property in question. It was once a home for 3 generations. Kenneth Burke, which I vividly remember growing up as a child, picking vegetables and fruits from the trees in the summer. I would have never known that, fast forward, after 3 decades, I'd be purchasing a property that was not mortgageable, not structurally habitable, had been used by a homeless person that was the grandson of Kenneth Burke. I was a bit sad, had it been put on the market by 2 different agents, failed, unsuccessful to be sold. I put an offering, had to purchase using my own hard-earned savings this property, which was dilapidated. The roof had leaked. It was in a very poor state, so much so that the architect said it'd be better to pull it down and rebuild it from scratch. And that same thing would apply to the bakehouse, which was adjoining by corrugated sheeting. It's 2 individual dwellings on 2 separate title deeds. These title deeds have been unfortunately misplaced, lost, and due to errors by the solicitors, when we did buy it, there was documents that were missing. We did carry out work 2 years ago to reinstate the building. At the same time, in April 2016, an application was submitted by the architect with the works that you see here today. The photos that are illustrated on the screen are obsolete because the work has been completed to a high standard. The trees that were removed are not justifiable because there were 2 trees removed 10 years ago by the previous owners. The property, which is the bakehouse, was occupied by the previous owner, who's now deceased. The transfer of both titles through estates and management have been paid in full as we await for this through the land registry. The building itself, there's half a dozen or so properties. Number 49, where there was a dome extension approved. 30 seconds. Number 51, Sparwood Top approved for a single-storey extension and dome extension. 2016, the year that we'd already submitted an application for this, it was approved for a dome extension and raising a roof and works at number 59. In other words, we're currently waiting for a certificate of lawfulness for 21 Sparwood Top, but 23 Sparwood Top is a dwelling that's freehold, and all the work that we have done has made it as a habitable residence.
Thank you, Mr. Patel. Thank you. Members, Councillor Sheikhullah.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Can I also thank the applicant for the history lesson that we've had? I think that was very useful, but sadly none of those material planning consents. Which brings me on to the application itself. I think that our officers have got it wholly wrong on this application for a number of reasons. Firstly, I think it's overbearing, I think it's over-intensification, and I think it has poor visual amenity. I would also disagree with the applicant on the basis that it's a good spec and a good finish. I would disagree with that it's not. I'm going to move that we refuse this application on the basis of overbearing, over-intensification and poor visual amenity. Can I also ask about the land at the rear in terms of the turning point that was mentioned, that a wall has been built over and residents on Sparwood Top can no longer turn round there? If that is the case, can we look at our enforcement officers, what they can do around that? And I would have to suggest that the land is restored back to what it was originally. Thank you.
Councillor Opal.
Thank you, Councillor Sokol. I just wanted to ask a couple of questions about conditions. Councillor Stewart-Turner mentioned potentially a couple of conditions around the replacement of trees and an inspection of a renovated building. I don't know if that's something we can add as conditions. Having looked at the site this morning, you know, I wasn't very happy with what's happened there, really. You know, and I think the wall at the back is very high, and I think there are concerns there about how overbearing the wall is, and I don't know if there's anything that can be done about the height of the wall at the back. I'd just like to get a view from officers on that as well. I think that's it for now.
Yes, thank you, Chair. To respond to the various concerns that have been raised, firstly by Councillor Stewart-Turner, any trees that are being felled are on adjacent land and not the application site itself, and as it's council land, it is actionable under other legal procedures. And this is ongoing, and is, I understand from our legal department, it is fairly close to being resolved, along with removal of spoil. The crack in the wall, which is shown on the plan, this would be dealt with under the remit of building regulations, not planning, as that would cover all aspects of structural soundness of what is the existing building, after all. It is correct that there is no allocated parking to serve the house, although it is a development of domestic scale, and it is turning a family home into a larger family-sized home, and as such, as officers, we don't have any major concerns about this. The rear access way, which is I think shown in one of these photographs, that this is again at an earlier stage in the works. As far as I've been able to determine, the retaining wall does not encroach on the rear access way. That is the retaining wall as shown on the plans, going around the back of the dwelling and the bakehouse, or if it does encroach, it's only really by a matter of inches. And to move on to Councillor Sheikh Ullah's comments, it's while officers are taking into account all aspects of design and appearance, and for the reasons set out in detail in the report, our opinion is that it can be approved, and many aspects of the scheme are very similar to what can be done under permitted development rights. The materials for the dormer, if they're doing it under permitted development rights, they'd have to match the existing roof materials, or match them as closely as possible. But it would be rather difficult to match the existing stone slates. At most, they could use blue slates. And finally, Councillor Opal's questions. To condition replanting of trees would probably not pass the standard test for conditions, as it's not on the application site itself, and therefore not. Although it's related to development, it wouldn't be reasonable to condition it, and it can be required by the council, as it's council land, under the powers. The final property would, those aspects that require building regulations consent would need to be inspected and signed off under building regulations, which is, of course, a separate set of procedures. Finally, the height of the retaining wall. I do not have any pictures for what the whole thing looked like before the work's begun, but my understanding is the retaining wall is Well, the retaining part of the wall is probably about the same height as the original retaining wall, but it's being built up a little bit above that, presumably just for safety and security reasons. And officers' view is, no, it's not overbearing, but it should be rendered to give it a more acceptable appearance. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Officer. Councillor Ken Sims.
Thank you, Chair. I second the vote to refuse this application on grounds that's already been spoken about, but to me this is a Heath Robinson job. You all know what that means. It's terrible. I would think it's unsafe in places, and the materials and way they've used them is not on. Do we know that that wall is strong enough to retain the land at the back? Has building legs been sought to ensure this is the case? Because if it's just a single breeze block, double breeze block that I've seen there today, it may not hold all that land back if we get bad weather and rain. I just can't understand why people just get on with these jobs and not seek proper planning permission for this sort of thing. And then hope when it comes to committee that we'll all say, oh yeah, it's all right, it's all right. I just think it's really wrong. And I wouldn't like to see this passed. I think it wants refused and it wants a good looking at by building regs, etc., to see what we've got there and whether or not there are some problems. Because if problems happen with that wall or the house moving, then we take the flak if we've passed it, you know. The council takes the flak and councillors, and I'm not happy with that. So I second the motion.
Councillor Bellama.
Thank you, Chair. I was actually going to second Councillor Ruller, but on the grounds that I had actually written down, as the planning officer said, it could have been better, and at the side of that I'd written, well, it should have been better, because I'd actually put my opinion after that of what that building looked like, and to be honest, what I've written is unrepeatable.
Can I say that the application has been moved to refuse and seconded by Councillor Sims? Are they all in favour? Yeah.
Is that unanimous?
Yeah.
Applications refused.
Planning application number 2018-91045, page 123, 47 Meltham Road, Honley. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I am Olivia Roberts, the case officer that has been dealing with this application, which has been brought to committee as the applicant is an elected member of Kirklees Council. The site is located at 47 Meltham Road and relates to a two-storey detached dwelling which occupies a corner plot along Meltham Road and Moorside Road in Honley. The proposal, which is shown on the submitted plans, is for the erection of a fence and alterations to the existing driveway. The fence will be located to the side of the property along the north-eastern boundary and will comprise feather edge fence panels. From the rear of the site to the front elevation of the dwelling, the fencing will measure 2 metres in height. From the front elevation of the property to the front of the site, the fencing will measure 1 metre. The width of the existing driveway will be increased from 3.2 metres to 6.2 metres and will be finished in tarmac and concrete to match existing. The existing drop curve will be extended to suit. The existing stone wall, which forms the boundary to the front of the site, will be retained following development. Due to the nature of the proposal and its relationship with the adjoining properties, is not considered to have a significant impact on residential amenity. It is also not considered that the proposal would result in any highways issues. The proposal is therefore considered to comply with the relevant policies and is being recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. No speaker members.
Yeah, happy to move this application.
Seconded.
Second. Any more members? Yeah. Application has been moved and second to approve the officer recommendation. Yeah. All in favor? Thank you. Yeah.
Application approved.
Thank you, officer. Planning application number 218/90021 is number 4, Delft Cottage, White House, Delft Gate, Slothwaite, page 131.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Neil Bearcroft and I acted as case officer presenting this application. The site was seen by members earlier today and forms a collection of 4 dwellings located off Chain Road between Maltham and Slathwaite that was been formed after a conversion of a former public house. The site is located within the green belt, and I draw members' attention to the committee update which sets out a further statement and also a correction in relation to the published committee report. The plan on site is the existing plan. These here are the 4 dwellings. There's one there, one to the front, and then 2 either side. The application property is this one on the south-eastern end, and the proposal is to put a building here to the rear of the garage. Here are a few photographs of the site. This is the garage. The building here on the left has previously got planning permission, and it's where that shed would go, where they're proposing to put the building. This is looking back at the adjacent dwelling. That's the applicant dwelling. And then this is looking from the drive upwards. And this is a wider view from the road looking towards Maltham and showing where the extension would be visible from. That's a bit of a wider view again. So this is the scheme that they're proposing. It's an extension attached to the rear of the garage, mainly glazed, with a pitched gabled roof that's slightly set down from the existing garage. It's brought to committee at the request of Councillor Bellamy as set out in the committee update. It is considered that the building, when combined with the previous extensions that form the 4 dwellings at the site, would represent a disproportionate addition to the original building. In addition, the host property benefits from only limited amenity space, and it is considered that a building of the scale proposed would lead to an overdevelopment of the site. Further information has been submitted by the applicant regarding the use of the building. However, this is not considered to outweigh the harm to the green belt in officer's opinion. The application is therefore recommended for refusal as set out in the committee report. Thank you, Chair.
Yes. Okay, Malcolm, you got 3 minutes to speak.
I'd ask members to look at the elevation drawing showing the existing garage in the illustration, the plan on the top left, and the garage, the studio store that's proposed. I'd point out that the garage is not the applicant's, my client's. It belongs to number 3 Delft Cottage. Members will note at paragraph 5.1 of the officer's report that officers suggested that a lean-to roof form would be acceptable rather than the simple ridged and gable form currently proposed, which, as you can see, has been designed to reflect and complement the adjoining neighbour's garage. Officers clearly consider that such a change would overcome their overall objection. The officer's suggestion has been carefully considered by my client, but my client is firmly of the opinion that what has been submitted is far preferable visually, i.e. we much prefer the ridged form rather than the lean-to form as officers propose. My client feels sufficiently strongly that she is unwilling to make the change suggested and therefore requests that the application is determined as submitted. She feels that the extremely limited increase in volume over and above an acceptable, what officers consider an acceptable lean-to form, does not represent sufficient justification to refuse the application. You will note the officer's correction to their original report, and I quote, "It is considered the extension by virtue of its design would not clearly outweigh the harm to the greenbelt." We, on the other hand, feel that the design as submitted is preferable to the officer's suggestion and should be accepted. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Malcolm. Yeah. Members. Councillor Bellamy.
Thank you, Chair. I obviously know this site quite well, and obviously I brought it to committee and drive past it probably about nearly every day, probably about twice a day. To be honest, I have no objections to this at all. I honestly don't think that it does harm the green belt. I don't think that it will stand out from as you're coming up the hill, as officers seem to think it will. The garage is already there, as seen. I'd be quite happy to actually approve this. What I would like, though, if we were to go down the approval sign, is perhaps put some condition up there that that is it and there is no other planning development up there in that, on that site at all. If we could condition that, maybe accept this. So if that could be done, then I'm quite happily to move approval.
Councillor Sam.
Yeah, I would second that approval, but certainly with a condition on now that no more development on that site. I know the site very well. It's been hugely developed. I should think it's over 2/3 more developed than what it used to be. So I'm happy. I'm happy with the design because I just think it fits in with the garage there, roof, etc. But I would want a condition on it now that that's it. No more development. Thank you.
Councillor Sheikh Allah.
Thank you. Yeah, I think yeah. In the grand scheme of things, I think what Councillor Sims and Bellamy have said, I think yes, I would support that. But I think that for further intensification on that site, I think it's really important that that's it now. No more.
Can I say application have been moved by Councillor Bellamy to approve it with condition? There's no further any extension on this side. And second by Councillor Sam. Yeah. Sorry? Yeah.
So it's just to get a view from the officer whether that's something that can be done, a condition can be put on to say that's it. No more after this. Is that possible?
Through you, Chair, we can withdraw permitted development rights, so there can be no other extensions carried out under permitted development, so they would have to apply for planning permission if they wanted any further extensions, which would then have to assess against the necessary planning policies.
Any more members? No? The application has been moved and seconded by Councillor Kensington. Are they all in? Yeah, Bellamy. Yeah. All in favour?
That's unanimous, Chair.
Application is approved.
Thank you very much.
Well done, Councillor Sokol.